Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Elliot Francis. Thanks for joining us here on Now. We're live this evening, just shortly after 7 p.m. in the evening. And boy, it is testament to the fact that the coronavirus is just about done. Vaccines have been coming down, lickety-split. More and more people are getting vaccinated these days. I have had my first. My wife and I have had our first, and we'll be getting more soon, probably by the end of the month, and hopefully you have got yours too. But things, as they say, are beginning to return to normal, and unfortunately, and I wouldn't consider this to be normal, but it certainly lets you know that things are beginning to open up. Unfortunately, when we have mass shootings beginning to occur again. One happening just this past Tuesday. Beginning around 5 p.m. Tuesday, alleged gunman, opened fire at 3 locations, killing 8 people, 6 of them Asian women. And it raises the specter not only of hate crimes and the fact that these may have been hate crimes, in fact, and all the available evidence is out on that just yet. We just don't know. We're still trying to get that. Authorities are saying they still have more of the investigation to go yet before they figured that all out. But now we have the added specter of sexual deviation. The accused shooter himself has apparently told police that he did this because of a mental illness that he has. Many people are not going for it. There's an intersection between that excuse, some think a very poor excuse. There is no excuse, of course, for murder, but the reason that he gives for what he did, and the rising level of hate crimes for people within the Asian community. This, of course, is no secret. It began some time ago and is continuing now. And some people will even say that it's ramped up. It's expanded during the Trump administration. And many of much of the language that's been associated with the Trump administration and some of the nonsense that they threw down about the coronavirus. But that's neither here nor there. But again, it raises the specter of a rising tide of hate and racism against the Asian community, and people are just trying to sort it out. Helping that, of course, unfortunately, are the police. The spokesperson for the Georgia Sheriff's Office, Jay Baker, now taking a lot of blowback in his community for some of the comments that he had in relation to this. And we're hearing now reporting some of the posts that they found on social media. It seems to indicate his attention is a little skewed and not quite as objective as it should be. Our guest tonight is a woman we talked to her earlier this afternoon, Susan Chuang. She's an actor. She's not a lawyer. She's not an advocate of any kind. She is Asian American, a woman who was born and raised in this country, of Chinese descent. Her and her family did live for some time in Taiwan, but she's lived here now for many years, somewhere on the West Coast. And she agreed to talk with us today to kind of sort out just exactly what this is all about and what it all means going forward. We're very clear to say that again, we don't know everything about this case yet. So all the available evidence is not in. It probably won't be for some time. We'll probably talk about this next week. But at this point, the dialogue has begun, and she's going to help us begin that dialogue first. But first of all, let's take a listen to the police spokesperson, Jay Baker, from the Georgia Sheriff's Office, and some of the comments that he's had, and some of the reaction to those comments that have drawn a lot of fire and added to the conversation. Take a look at this.
He was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope, and yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did.
I couldn't believe that a police captain was recounting the bad day that the killer had without a shred of empathy for the really bad day that the 8 victims and their families had, the incredible grief that the whole community is going through. And this is the kind of thing that makes people question law enforcement and whether they are really there for the people that they're supposed to be protecting.
Susan Truong, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon to discuss this, and thank you for taking the time to do so.
Oh, thanks, Elliot.
Uh, let's start at the beginning. Of course, this week Tuesday, as everybody knows, the horrendous shooting that folks have been talking about, done at 3 spas in the Atlanta area. 8 people shot and killed altogether, 6 of them Asian females, which has drawn up the conclusion from a lot of people that this is a crime, a hate crime, essentially, civil rights violation. However, in opposition to this is some of the information that police have found out that this gentleman denied that it was a hate crime because he had some sort of sexual deviancy, mental illness that he was dealing with, and this related to why he made these horrendous shootings. But it does raise the issue of an ongoing rise in hate crimes and bias against the Asian community, particularly against Asian women. How do you see this based on where you're from?
Well, with any racial issue, it's so complicated, and mental health issues complicated. So I think to chime in with some kind of decision, I'm not equipped to do that. There's all these details I don't know about this person's background, upbringing, what happened to this person in their life. Mm-hmm. I've actually been using the shelter and at home time during the COVID to learn a lot about developmental trauma and how that impacts people and how they think and behave. So, it's very easy now with media covering things across the globe for us to chime in on things, but how much do we really know and how much can we say from where we stand?
Mm-hmm. Would you agree that over the past 4 years, Trump administration and some of the language that he's used and finger pointing in regards to the coronavirus and being caused by people in Asian countries, or at least Asian countries, and that nonsense, which I think we've all agreed is nonsense, that it's caused a rise in hate crimes and prejudicial actions against people in the Asian community. Do you see that to be true at all?
Well, I think we're certainly way more divided after his time in office, but I believe that he didn't cause all these problems. We've had these issues in our country, and I feel like Trump's time kind of brought them all to the surface more. So he certainly didn't help and added fuel to the fire. So, but I don't think he single-handedly created these racial issues.
No, and I didn't necessarily mean to imply that he had created it or his administration created it, but they certainly created.
I wasn't saying that you implied.
Oh yeah, no, understood. But my implication was that he's caused an environment that's created an expansion in this kind of thought over the past 4 years.
Yes.
True.
Yes.
What, have you, in your experience, have you seen or talked to anybody who's experienced this, and if so, how?
Well, I can't say what this is caused by, but I was just at a local farmer's market buying my produce from a vendor I shop with all the time. And while I was there, a female customer next to me, she had paid with cash for her purchase she was finishing up. And then she noticed that they were accepting credit cards. So she said, could I pay with a credit card instead? And the father said, okay. So he gave her back her change, and they were going to change the transaction. And I'm just buying my produce. Next thing I hear her say is, after they finish, she's like, okay, give me my 100 back. And he said, I did. And she said, no, you didn't. He had taken the change he was going to give her back. That's what I meant earlier. So he took the change back and presumably gave her the 100 back. She was claiming he stole this money from her. And the son of the vendor came over and very gently, maybe check your purse to see. And she kind of looked in her purse briefly, pulled out another 100 and said, I had 2 of these. I only have 1 now. And she also pulled some bills out of her pocket. And so I just said, maybe check the rest of your pockets. You know, sometimes we put things temporarily. And she turned to me and she said, you keep your Asian ass out of this. And I thought, well, I don't know where that came from, you know? And the son handled it very well. I mean, they ended up, you know, telling her that they had given her money back. She said she was going to call the police. She said we were all going to go to hell. We were horrible people. And I'll be honest, my gut instinct when she said, you know, I'm going to go to hell was to say, keep my seat warm for me. But I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I saw a look in her eyes that was kind of frantic, like she felt everyone was against her. And I kind of felt bad for her. And the son also handled it. He said, you know, have a nice day as she left. My cat has an opinion on it too. So.
I see, or I hear.
Yes, sweetie, come on. Oh, no, don't do that. So my point is that we have to look at where these issues are coming from, you know, because we can continue to treat the symptoms when these behaviors happen, but what is happening underneath earlier in life that is causing these, oh my God.
That's okay. You bring her into the shot if you like.
She wants to be in camera. She actually doesn't like to be held. She just likes to be.
That's okay. We're all folks here. You can bring her in. Absolutely. I don't mind at all.
Okay. Now she's scratching her claw.
Okay.
So, you know,
So you're
do we
suggesting.
really know each other? It's one thing to just condemn people for behavior that seems unacceptable, but more importantly, why? Why is this behavior? Why does that person think that of me?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I have beliefs about other people? Why do they have certain beliefs about me? And with social media, we're able to, you know, give opinions on things all over the globe. But do we know our neighbors? Do we know where our food's coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Do we know each other? And I think that is more of dealing with the root cause of things than just the symptom. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you mentioned that because I had the same discussion, a somewhat similar discussion with some folks that I've known for a long time. I'm originally from Boston and went to school in a program that took kids from the inner city and took them out to schools in the suburbs, quite a distance away, but schools that were decidedly better than the ones that we had an opportunity to go to, and in communities that were certainly not as black as we were coming from. Many of these communities were all white. But at the time that we went there, it allowed students, you know, 13, 14, anywhere all the way up to 17 years old, to sort of meet each other, and get a chance to know each other, understand some of the things that we didn't understand about each other, ask those sometimes uncomfortable questions, and get answers to those questions at a time when we're able to process them. And my point with this discussion was that we need more of that, because we are, and I was criticized for the use of this word, but I tend to use it a lot. Our tribal nature as human beings states that we all kind of stay with people that we're familiar with, folks who are of the same nationality, same background, we eat the same food. It's very comfortable for us. But if we never get a chance to go out and meet some of these other people, we're always going to have these difficulties with each other. How close am I there?
I totally agree. And I think that in the process of finding out, understanding things that are different about us, you actually also find out the many things we have in common. And that's where you bond, right? We all grieve, we all love. Those experiences that we share are what also connect us. And I'm glad to hear that you had that experience earlier in life, because I had this discussion with my doctor at my physical, and he said, you know, when he was in medical school, a long time ago, they had this program where they brought in diverse students into the medical program. And they didn't succeed. It was almost like an affirmative action type of thing, right? But the issue was they didn't give them that opportunity earlier to build the foundation they needed to get through medical school. They just brought them in at the medical school level, I think, is my understanding. And if you don't have the basics that they needed before, they weren't given that opportunity earlier, then they said, oh, see, we gave them the opportunity and they didn't succeed. But that's at this beyond graduate level, you know, where they needed those opportunities, like you're saying, when you're younger, to have those opportunities that are, not available to everybody.
What do you make what do you make of the things swirling around? I mean, I think we've agreed we're kind of on the same page going forward. And it's interesting because we were talking earlier, and I had mentioned to you that I thought this shooting was cut and dried. I mean, it's a horrendous shooting with eight people are shot of any race, color, or creed. But when you have a situation like this one, all the people, or at least most of the people, are at least of one nationality and one gender, as it turns out. You have people weighing in on a lot of different issues on what this could be. And again, as the police say, we don't have a motive for this yet. We're still trying to develop a motive around this. But for my money, it's a matter of a man or an accused shooter with a mental illness who has access to a weapon that he uses to kill people. How come we can't separate those two? Every other discussion in my mind is sort of moot. Not that we shouldn't discuss it if it in fact is a hate crime. Not that we shouldn't discuss it if it's a crime against women or some other nature, but we just don't know that yet. But what we do know is that this man was mentally ill and he had a gun. How is that still happening in our society?
Right, right. But again, that's again looking at the symptoms when they come to a head and create a problem, right? So we have gun control. We think, okay, take away guns or lock up people that have mental health issues. How about why are people developing these mental health issues in our country at such a great degree? You know, I mean, how are we raising our children? This, like learning about this developmental trauma has started me to ask a lot of questions, encouraged me to ask a lot of questions about this, because let's look at kids when they're all young and small and little. Do they have these streaks in them?
Sure.
Right? They're innocent, they're cute, they're lovable. What happens? What happened between that time and the time that this person created this, committed this crime? I think it's much more complicated than we want to deal with. Because the solution is going to take a lot longer to address it at the root cause. I heard this expression that really made me think. It said, when you only deal with the symptoms, that's like trying to hang new drapes in a house that's on fire. The drapes are going to keep going up in flames unless you put the fire out in the house. And it's much more involved,
Yeah, good point. Good point. And as we talked before, you've had a news block out for some time. What have you been doing, by the way?
Yeah, I'm minimizing my diet of media.
Why?
Intake.
And
Honestly,
I've asked this question of a lot of people because I find it interesting that particularly around the election, people say, "No, I can't watch news anymore. It's just I've got a news blackout." What were your reasons for creating a news blackout?
It's overwhelming and it can be depressing. And I can also see the bias on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
Like during election coverage, it's not just you can say, oh, that side's always doing this and they're exaggerating this. Look at the other side. Are they not doing it just on their issues in their way as well? And so, like I said, I'm trying to be more present in my immediate environment. Like, how am I living my life? Am I getting to know the people near me, the people that I buy my food from? The farmers market, I have some great conversations with the vendors there about topics like this. Books that we read that have, like The Four Agreements is a book that I love. I just told this woman who grows mushrooms there about it, and she's going to read. Like, that to me is the human connection that we really need to nourish to grow beyond these differences. It's very easy to point fingers, categorize. We're more complicated than that.
Yeah, we're very complicated, as we see.
Yeah, but we can get to know each other, and it's enlivening when you get to know somebody and understand something new about them.
And
I encourage it.
And it's a lot of hard work, which is why I think it's
Yes.
not being done. That said,
Yeah.
that said, you've had this news blackout, so I understand you may not understand all the details and the nuances about what everybody's talking about right now. But again, people are, I guess the struggle that people are trying to make right now is they're trying to make this connection that a lot of folks are trying to make, mostly in the Asian community, that says, basically says that the fact that this person committed this crime against establishments where he knew he would find Asian women, and the fact that he claimed in his madness that he was doing this to alleviate some crazy notions in his mind, and he thought he could resolve it by shooting these people, speaks directly to the intersection of sexual depravity and hate crime or prejudiced, and people are trying to find that intersection.
But they're trying to connect those dots
Yeah,
directly.
do you see that at all?
Then I see, like I said, I've limited my consumption of the media on this in general, and to make it that simplistic that you can just draw this dot to that dot with a straight line, I can't do that based on the information I have, and I don't know how many people really can, because also we're dependent on what's being released in the media to us about the situation. Again, it's both issues so complicated, and just to say that because of this, that what is that analogy they have about, oh, if you're you have an I'm going to get this wrong, but something about you have an ice cream cone and the ice cream melts when you're near a cow, that the cow caused it, or something like that, where it can appear, but maybe it's the sun and the weather when you're with the cow. Like, I just think it's very hard to make a definitive connection like that until you really know all of the complicated details.
Sure. And it seems to me too, and tell me how far off I'm on the road here if I'm straying away off the range. But it is a crime, if we want to look at it as a crime against any one particular group or people. It's more a crime against a gender, I think, than a particular nationality of people. I mean, this to me seems more a crime against women. If we're going to talk about however he perpetrated it in his sick mind, he definitely targeted women. The fact that women happen to be most of the women happen to be of one nationality, I don't want to dismiss that, but it to me sounds like it may be a lesser issue than the issue of crime against women. Does that make sense to you at all?
I kind of understand what you're saying, but even again, so let's say this was a massage spot, right? Correct?
Yeah.
But if you look at, let's say, nail salons in general, many employees in nail salons are often Asian females, correct?
Yeah.
So
And we say that without any regards to trying to target or create any what's the word I'm looking for, any stereotypes.
and I'm not saying all. Yes, but again, so I'll probably get pegged saying not all. Of course, not all.
Right.
But where I live, and I can't say for the whole country, where I live, many nail salons have many Asian female employees. So they're in that occupation, in that environment. Someone makes an attack at the nail salon. Okay, were they intentionally going after that gender, that race?
Right. Or
How can I know? How can
Right.
I know? Possible, of course. Of course it's possible. I don't know what's going through that person's mind when I can't even understand why they would do that anywhere.
Right.
So now you're adding in another layer to make this call that it was, specifically a hate crime against females. I cannot be the one to make that call.
No.
It's certainly possible.
Certainly possible. And the thing is that none of us, I think, feel qualified to make that value judgment right now, because as the police said, we'll just go down from the investigative top all the way down. They've even said at this point, it is something that they can't determine at this time because they just don't have the information. They don't have the source information. They haven't completed their investigation. And I get that. Let's give them time to kind of sort everything out and come to a conclusion that makes sense. But I was talking with my wife the other day, and she had pointed out something. She said, "Well, if he has these problems, these mental issues around sexual issues, why didn't he go to a strip club? Or why didn't he go just, there's street corners that people can identify where prostitutes hang out and work. Why didn't he go there? We've seen that before. And it's a horrible thing to consider, but why did he target that? I told him, well, that's probably what he's familiar with in this madness that he's created for himself. If he was familiar with a strip club, he would have went there. And then we would be sitting here talking about violence against black women. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it had so much to do with the nationality of the women itself as it did with the location that he chose to attack. And those women just happened to be, unfortunately.
You mean accessibility of that location?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Accessibility and familiarity with the location. It's what he was used to, what he was accustomed to, what he associated in his mind with this madness that he had cooked up.
Like, again, because I don't know all these details about the situation. Are some people claiming that because he claims he had sexual deviant behavior that Asian women are the target? Are we now saying that Asian women are considered the target for sexual deviant? You know what I mean? That's another generalization you're making. Why particularly Asian women?
Yeah.
Why not just?
That's
the
conclusion.
I mean, I think people are making a lot of conclusions that we're not really equipped to make.
Right. Not that they wouldn't make sense with the right amount.
It's possible. Yes, right. But for us to just say this is this for sure, or this, he did it because of that.
We just don't know.
I'm not on that police force. I'm not investigating to find out the details. And so can I really say that from where I sit?
Right. No, neither one of us can say it. And as we talked about before, neither one of us want to get hammered on social media for giving the wrong impression about our opinions. But certainly, coming back full circle, there is concern about bias and racism towards the Asian community. That's been there for some time and was only, as you described, only whipped up or expanded within the 4 years of the Trump administration. Going forward, is it just a matter of getting to know one another, or you think we got to get deeper than that?
Well, that makes it sound like it's easy. I don't have an easy answer. I mean, I think, people said at the beginning of this pandemic that this is a wake-up call to us about how we're treating, our environment, all the things. Are we listening? All these things that happen, it's like that's when you grow, is when you are challenged. Even in our personal lives, I'm dealing with that myself, the dark night of the soul. Are you going to accept that opportunity to get out of your comfort zone and to grow? I think it's not going to be something that just some person up in charge is going to say, hey, we're going to do this from now on. It certainly helps if they lead in that direction. But I think we can't forget our potential as individuals to change our behavior, to open our minds. I don't have a pat answer on how we do that. But yeah, really try to get to know other people, different people, instead of just making snap judgments.
Absolutely. And again, I didn't expect you to have a pat answer on this. I don't think any of us have a pat answer on it, but we'll continue to try and work on it. Susan Truong, thank you so much for spending time with me this afternoon to discuss this. It's a topic on a lot of people's minds, and I think whatever the case and whatever they find out, you have certainly added to the discussion and hopefully added to some of the solutions. So thank you.
Thanks, Elliot. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us this evening for another edition of Now. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and then be sure and bring your fans back next week. Bring some family, friends, associates next week on Thursday for another edition of Now right here. Till then, take care. Peace.